Welcome to the second episode of Iconoclasting with Sarah Smith, Kim Scribner, and Jamie Bernard. Welcome, ladies.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Hi. All right, so I'm going to do a quick introduction of all three of us, and then Jamie is going to set up the topic. So, hi, I'm Sarah Smith. I am currently working as the founder and principal of Iconoclast Innovations, focusing on fractional chief of staff work, project and program management. And one of the things I specialize in is large-scale organizational design and management, located in just outside of DC in Northern Virginia. Kim, you want to go next?
Sure. Kim Scribner. I am a senior director of CMG Consulting and also support my own firm, Sun Ocean Consult. And I focus on helping leaders have a more agile mindset. Jamie's going to hit me on this in a second. I can feel it. And so that they can be effective in delivering a holistic vision.
And I agree with that, Kim. My name is Jamie Bernard. I'm a senior director of product management and strategy. And I have led and built lots of product organizations and specialized in making sure you're spending your money wisely and really hold leaders accountable for doing that so that they cascade their strategy and value down through organizations. I'm based out of St. Louis, and I'm very excited to be here. I love talking about product.
Yay, and I love talking with the three of us. So what we're going to talk about is kind of a continuation of that first podcast that Kim and I had. That was focused more about how are you making your value visible as a Scrum Master. We're going to take it a little bit further, especially with Jamie's voice around product management. Jamie, do you want to set up what we were talking about?
Sure. So when we talk about getting into the creation and expansion of product management in an organization, I know that there has been just a wildly different implementation across many large enterprises that's resulted in sort of a hot take that I think Marty Kagan has really amplified around product folks just focusing on delivery. I personally think a lot of that's due to the way that product management was implemented in large organizations, which quite frankly is to like it with that people were knighted. A lot of ex-BAs are now, business analysts are now product owners. And it happened such that companies typically brought in a consultant or sent people to training. And on Friday, you were a business analyst. And over the weekend, I dubbed thee a product owner, and then on Monday they start their new job knighted as either a product manager or product owner. And one of the issues that I think these folks are having, and it's tied directly to that experience of the Scrum Master, is really kind of clarifying what value not only does product bring to the organization, but how are they working with the teams to share that value of the thing that they're building, and how that tracks up to the business strategy and the actual outcomes that the company is trying to achieve with the product they're investing in. And that's an area that I think a lot of people struggle with. I have had people on my team struggle, and many clients struggle from the top of the portfolio stack all the way down into delivery.
So connecting that strategy to execution.
Yes. With a thread, with like actual real numbers, or the need to baseline them. And that's probably the biggest piece of pushback or feedback that I hear from folks is, well, I'm just doing this thing because I'm told to do it. And I feel you, that's your reality. And I'm not going to push back on that lived experience because I know that people are feeling it. But I think that there is some action that these folks can take that still shares the heart of product management, which is really our job is to deliver a product of value to a customer. Even if you're kind of boxed in by a demand or a set project that you have to deliver, there's still a story to be told. If you don't have metrics, you can baseline them so that you can say our product is doing this thing for this customer and it's generating this business value. That is a message that must get pushed down into your team so that they can be the creative ones to help try to solve the problems. And it's a message that's super important to go up because not only are you not focusing on just how busy you are and how many things you delivered, but you can help push up to your product manager or your portfolio owner to say, we are moving this very important needle that's causally linked to one of our strategic outcomes. Even if you kind of are connecting 4 or 5 dots to get there, that storytelling is the thing that I think a lot of folks can lean into and really help paint the picture of this is why we exist and why we're here and why my role is important.
I'm going to push back on something you said a couple of minutes ago, which is that you're not going to challenge people who say the reality that people say, so and so told me to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And here's why. That is my least favorite statement in any business setting, agile, not agile. I have heard people forever and a day say, the president said so. The number one most important client said so. And my question back has always been, do you know why they said so? Because 9 times out of 10, there could be a reason why that person is asking for that thing. But if you take that one extra step, which is great, John Smith, president of our organization, can you tell me why this is important? You will learn so much, whether your role is product owner, business analyst, scrum master, designer, developer. Ask that one question and you will get so much more value and be able to have a really collaborative conversation about here's maybe an alternate solution to that thing that you're trying to do.
I completely agree. I will take the pushback in that I agree that that is a good next step. I think the thing that people are feeling kind of beat down, and so I don't want to tell them, you have to go and have this super scary conversation. I think that what you said, Kim, is the second step. I think at least being able to get your metrics and understand your current state is the place to approach that conversation with your leader, because if you are coming in and asking why and really pushing back with different solution, you have to have data and information to do that. Otherwise, the conversation is really scary because it's difficult to go up and make change. So I think you're absolutely correct. I think you have to have the why behind it. But if you're in flight and you're in process of delivering things, I think there's a story to be told about we are here today and what we're doing is valuable and important. But as you get information and learn about your product, your capability, and can map that story up through how your products fit into the customer journey and ultimately your business strategy, that's going to equip you to have that conversation, because there's this expectation, I think, on a product manager that we take a lot of face shots. Like there's a lot of bruise on the product management face because we do bridge that business and technology gap more often. And you have that in role where sometimes you have somebody who's just a manager, quote unquote, dealing with the president or VP or director. And the one piece of advice that I was given years ago is if I'm going to push back, I need to have a solution option or create optionality in the conversation. So I think it's super brilliant to push back.
Yeah, and we can diverge off of this in a moment. If you don't ask the question early enough, you're going to spend a lot of time gathering data on what might not even be worthwhile. And one of the things that in parallel is important to me is eliminating waste.
Yes.
And so I'm not suggesting to push back on the requests. I'm saying get at least a little bit more information before you even dive in on the metrics, because the time spent gathering the data could even be eliminated by a short conversation.
Oh, okay. Now we're going to elevate. So
Yeah.
The folks I was talking about are your product manager, product owner. That person who owns the portfolio, in my opinion, they have a duty to dig their heels in.
Yes.
And force the pre-investment conversation.
Yeah.
Like,
so hopefully that responsibility, depending upon your delegation structure and things like that, right? Hopefully that authority to ask that question exists throughout the system so that even early on, I'm not talking hands on the keyboard level, but still early on when you're starting to do discovery of ideas and things like that anybody should be able to ask those questions, right? That requires a lot of psychological safety and all sorts of things that are topics for future podcasts. But just to make sure that we are even aiming at the same target.
I completely agreed. And part of what I see missing in lots and lots of organizations is this macro level understanding of your customer journey. And I
Yes.
don't mean like I
Mhm.
go into a system and I do these actions, right? That documentation and experience understanding and empathy is absolutely needed. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking like, what game are we playing in the marketplace?
Mm-hmm.
And why do we think it's important to play here? And what are our competitors doing
Yep.
here? Like, being able to have those questions, if you can't ask those questions, like, that's a level that I will come in and play and be the evil consultant and be like, we have a problem here because you're spending a large bucket of money on something that you can't justify why you're spending it. And while I respect people's experience and domain knowledge and gut, because I do think that there's a lot of merit to kind of gut checking and trusting your instincts, but we're talking multi-million dollar spend. And these are human beings that you're asking to do work, and they deserve the ability to know their purpose and have autonomy to ask questions. And so I put a lot of that pressure on the product leader to really like have a deep understanding of the marketplace, the why behind the decisions so that they can be challenged. They have a conversation with their product teams, and it should almost be like a thesis defense, like in my opinion,
Yeah.
because if you're spending money and you're asking knowledge workers to like dig in and spend their day and not dread opening their laptop, we all should be able to respect each other like professionals and have a good conversation around the pushback, because
Yeah.
I shouldn't be
Okay.
telling you to build this thing.
So
We should
Sarah,
be
Time out
talking
for
about
just a
the
second,
experience.
because
Hmm.
we've gone through the whole stack, right?
Oh
Of
yeah.
from the people that do the work
Hmm.
into the portfolio level, the people that are making those key decisions. So before we go too far, what are some key takeaways that you would say for this particular group, maybe product owner or product manager, when you're talking about how are we focusing on delivery, but not only that, but just value delivery? What
Yeah.
can they do?
Create the story for the product that they own with their stack. So if I'm a portfolio leader and I might have inherited a portfolio of things to deliver, and that is my job. I might have been knighted at the director level too. If I'm a product manager, I should be able to create that story of, here's where we exist in the customer journey, life cycle, what have you. Here are the capabilities that we're supporting, and here's the product and what it does and the metrics associated. Then I should be able to have a conversation up around the problems that we're solving and why I believe inside my scope of responsibility we should do X, Y, and Z because of these metrics or because of this competitor or whatever. And that then allows me as a person who's responsible for the tactical delivery get that why and with my leader and push it down into the product ownership, which is typically kind of the taxonomy that exists, and create that same dialogue. They should be able to push back on me on the specifics of how they're going to solve the problem in the way that I, as a product manager, would push back and have good dialogue with my leader around the problems that are worth solving to begin with. So I see these circles that should exist at every level around what we're solving, why we're solving it, and why we believe that it's a good way or good reason to solve. And you will hit roadblocks. And so there's going to be some notion of dissenting and moving on, because some of it you just might have to do, but the story is still worth telling because data speaks super loudly. So if you get into a build trap, continue to tell your story, continue to capture the data, because eventually it's going to win out. Objectivity leads to dollars.
So when you're saying the build trap, that's a book by Melissa Perri that people can, grab. It's called Escaping the Build Trap, and it is a fantastic read or listen. And Jamie, just to recap some of the takeaways, you said create a story for your product,
Mm-hmm.
highlight the problems to solve, make sure they're data driven, and the third would be pushback and dialogue. Okay, good. Kim, you have a background as a BA. So I'm really interested to hear
as a
your
business
take on this
analyst
too.
and the chief product owner, yes.
Yeah. So you've got a really
In a much
interesting
smaller
background as well.
organization where
Yeah.
I was responsible for money being made to pay people. I did have business analysts that reported to me that were proxies for product ownership, but not product owners themselves. And, in that role, I also ran the steering committee. So it was very easy to be part of why are we doing the things that we were doing, to ask those questions really early on. And so part of what I believe is that you need to have almost multiple small businesses, depending upon the size of your organization, operating inside your organization, because you get a much more scrappy, entrepreneurial kind of approach to why are we doing the things that we're doing. A curious question for Jamie is, at what level have you seen profit responsibility on a product exist? Because I think that could determine how people behave.
Completely agreed. So I'm a structuralist when it comes to org design. And one of the most recent organizations that I held, I was accountable for coming in and literally ripping down the product org and rebuilding it from scratch. And one of the things that we used as a guiding principle is that pricing and P&L needed to be part of the success criteria for the product owners of specific capabilities. So if I, as a product leader in the portfolio, I had a P&L of X amount of dollars, I then was responsible for decomposing and making sure that I understood the actual hard value that the capabilities that I had sliced up, I could quantify what level of profitability, what level of revenue generation that they were accountable for today. And it was my responsibility then to teach and work with product managers and product owners on what it means to own that, what it means to do market research, and then what it means to align that specifically to tactics. And that is a certain level of alchemy that requires a product leader to have a heart of a teacher, because this isn't something that's typically taught down. You either learn it trial by fire, or you eventually get up into an organization where you have a P&L and you have to go just figure it out, sink or swim style. So there's not a lot of teaching that I see. And so what we ended up doing was exactly that. We got the data from finance, which was way more difficult than it should have been. But we got the data from finance and cascaded down P&L at the manager level. And the decisions that they made were so much more bold than, we have to show how productive we were. Oh, we got all these story points and we got all these things done. And that is whenever I go into a large enterprise. That is my background, is large enterprise. That's what I tell people. I'm a large enterprise baby. Like the startup scrappiness, I love, but I've never been in that small of an environment. But by giving people the autonomy and the purpose and the accountability for the profit, and making sure that the direction was set and they were realistic, that changed the conversation. It changed how people approached their work. And whenever they thought that it wasn't going to generate the money, they spoke up, because that's what they were incentivized to do.
Yeah,
And
I think when we
working.
give people clarity upfront and then let them go, right, with measurement in between, right? So that's the most important thing. If you can successfully provide the clarity where you don't have to step in on a daily or a regular basis as a product leader, that's a measure of your providing the value, right? Because as a product leader, you should be spending most of your time, this is my hot take minute here, Sarah, outside the organization,
Yes.
right? Understanding what the people outside the organization think about your products, what their needs are, what their problems are, and how that impacts your organization's profit. And so those two things are where product leaders should be focused. And then you've got, product owners, so to speak, that are focusing down on, the delivery side. And together, those two people make a super strong product organization. Sarah, question for you specifically, having worked with a lot of teams that are delivering features. Have you encountered doers who don't care about the why, and how do you help them overcome that?
Gosh, that is such an anti-pattern. The most successful team I've ever worked with was when I was doing travel software, and the team was super connected to the end user, and we were in the hospitality line of business. They were also a very senior team. So one of the senior engineers was talking through the architecture of an API that we were creating, and he said this wouldn't be a good user experience for them. Like an engineer, just, a software engineer. And so he redesigned the entire thing. And it was that without the product manager saying, you need to do this way, we didn't have anybody from a user experience perspective. So they were really incorporating all of that into this one small team. But when you're talking about doers who don't care about the why, it becomes, okay, well, can you get them in front of stakeholders, which I know is going to scare a lot of people. But can you get them in front of stakeholders? Can you get them to understand who are they actually creating for? And I think that's where personas can be used, although that's also semi of a hot topic. But how do you make them relate? How do you pull on those strings, right? It's all about the emotional response to those kind of things. So I'm hearing a lot of product leadership because you both are product leaders, right? You're leaders in many ways. So if we're thinking about, and I'm also hearing like, how do you build a PM? The heart of a teacher, the entrepreneurial spirit, like those are really interesting concepts I think we're going to dive into next time. Rapid fire, what are some key takeaways for the listeners of this episode? I'll start
know your
with
customer. I'm just going to step in. Know your customer. Know the game that you're playing in the market and how that connects to your customer and why they should care about what you're building, and measure.
Kim?
Understand the places where you're losing to competition. So a very specific part of the market that Jamie just mentioned. And if you have not asked why this week, you're the problem.
Don't be the problem.
Don't be the problem.
My biggest one is leadership. Leadership is very important. Having good leadership to help guide and coach and see the bigger vision so that other people can work on how are they aligning that strategy to execution. And then know your value. Know what the value is that you're trying to create. So this was a great conversation, ladies. Thank you so much.
Thanks, y'all.
Yeah.
All right.
Indeed.
We'll talk
Thanks
to you
for having
next
me.
time. All right. Bye.